Joining us now, staff writer at The Atlantic, David Graham, former press secretary to Speakers John Boehner and Paul Ryan, and current MSNBC political analyst Brendan Buck, former North Dakota Senator Heidi Heitkamp, and host of the Fast Politics podcast, and MSNBC political analyst Molly Jong-Fast. Brendan, I want to begin with you. What do you think of what Donald Trump posted over the weekend, the way he talked about those protesters, the way Chip Roy is talking about them, the way Speaker Johnson is talking about them? Is that a good idea?
Well, I was actually pretty troubled by what Speaker Johnson said, saying that those people hate America. I mean, these people aren't really my cup of tea or my flavor. I saw a nice couple in my neighborhood dressed as tacos. But they don't hate America. They're doing something pretty American. I don't know that this is necessarily great. I don't know if this has significant meaning for Democrats politically, if we're talking about the midterms. I don't think it's a surprise that there's a lot of riled up Democrats everywhere, all across the country, even in West Virginia. I don't think that's a surprise. I think the Democrats' problem is that their brand is in the toilet, and a lot of people don't like the way that Democrats have been dominated by the sort of far left of their party. And I think that was actually on display, and I think that's what Donald Trump was getting at. I certainly don't think that Donald Trump's humor is in good taste or presidential, but I think downplaying this is probably the right approach for him. I think this is what you're seeing is quintessentially American, but I don't know that also necessarily means that it's helpful for Democrats.
There's downplaying, and then there's posting a video where it appears you're dropping feces all over a crowd of people. I mean, those are I'm not saying you endorse that, Brendan. I know, but it makes the deplorables comment from Hillary Clinton look tasteful and tame in comparison. Senator, what do you think?
Well, I think that everybody should think back to the Tea Party movement. Mm-hmm. And when in town halls, people started showing up and complaining, people started marching and attending rallies, people started speaking out, and the Democrats ignored them and said, oh, they're not representative, or this will go away. Let me tell you, this is not going to go away when you have over 5,000 people in North Dakota. Look, if every one of those people took 20 people to the polls, their attitude would be dominant. And so, you ignore this kind of thing at your peril. And I think he overreacted with the vulgar posting, because he knows this is problematic. He knows that he is failing. He knows that when you look at the index of consumer sentiment, it is way down, even lower than when Joe Biden was president, that people are angry, people are scared, and they're not just scared for their democracy, they're scared for their families. And ignoring it is not the way to go. Our senator basically said, oh, those aren't real people. Well, they're Americans. They're North Dakotans who are doing what they need to do, saying what they need to say. And so I think that ignoring this is at their peril. And, good on them if they think they can ignore 5 million people in this, 7 million people in this country who took time out to do the most American thing ever, which is try and speak to their government.
So, Graham, they all had one message, and that was we don't have kings in this country. But beyond that, was there a leader? Was there a unifying message that's supposed to broaden farther out, David, to harness the power of a political movement?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the strengths, to Brendan's point, of the No Kings protests is that they are not clearly something driven by the Democratic Party. While Democratic Party leaders seem to be struggling to say anything to anyone or to get a message across, here you have a lot of people who are upset, and they're out in the streets, and they're sort of unifying around this really simple slogan. And I think the slogan works well because it's immediately intelligible, and it's the sort of thing that can reach across aisles. It's not a particularly radical message. It's a message that we oppose monarchy, that we want checks and balances. We want the things that Americans have been committed to for a very long time. So I think that's a strength. I also think it's a little bit limiting. It's hard to go beyond that. But I think if you can gather this many people under an umbrella, people have to pay attention. And the way Trump is responding, the sort of lash out and that video, and by the way, a video with saying King Trump with a crown doesn't exactly disprove the point. I think the fact that he's this upset about it shows that it's getting the attention of the White House in a way that the June protests, I would say, did not.
Yeah, that's true. There wasn't much comment on that. Donald Trump is always one to run toward a controversy and to try to embrace it in order to diminish its power, and that's, I think, why he was wearing that crown. Molly, just on that same question that I was giving to David, there's a lot of discussion today about what the Democratic Party needs to do in order to figure out how to campaign. And there's a lot of push and pull between, do we talk about oligarchy? Do we talk about authoritarianism and democracy? Do we talk about the economy? Do we focus instead wholly and entirely on the cost of living? Having witnessed what happened on Saturday across this country with 7 million people, do you think that there's a clearer argument today?
Yeah, and I mean, I'd like to sort of push back for a minute on what Brendan said, because I do think 7 million people is a huge number of people. It's probably going to be the largest political rally. You know, the Earth Day was bigger, but that's it. So that's a huge number of people. Donald Trump has been underwater with everything, just continuously. So the idea that somehow this, you know, the Democratic brand, obviously, they lost the 24 cycle. They kept some Senate seats. They lost some. The Democratic brand polls poorly right now, but it still doesn't poll as poorly as Trump. And if you are this president who has crushed all these norms and institutions, and you have millions and millions of people saying, like, we don't like the way you're crushing norms and institutions, and you have these Republican politicians and billionaires who refuse to stand up for this stuff, I think that this is good for the Democratic Party. And look, Democrats love to hand-wring. There are certainly a lot of fractions. There are a lot of candidates. There are some that are very centrist and some that are maybe, you know, lefty in a way that the middle doesn't like. But this is a huge groundswell of people. And if you look at the coverage that we saw the Tea Party get for, you know, fractions of this number of people in all different states, in all different cities. And by the way, I think the really good example of why Trump world is having so much trouble with this is that they said, well, the people are too lefty. They're not American. Oh, they're too old. They're too white. Okay, so like the fact that they can't message on it when Trump world is so good at messaging and they're all over the place, I think really speaks volumes to how this has caught them off guard.
What do you think of the Tea Party comparison, Brendan?
Well, there's something definitely to that. And look, in a midterm election, having energy matters. So, like, clearly there is some energy out there, but I don't think that is the Democrats' problem right now. It has not been the problem for the entire Trump era. We know that there are energized Democrats out there. The Democrats' party or problem is that, as we're talking about, the party is deemed as too lefty. It just is. And I don't know that this kind of thing does anything to help you there. And Katie, to your question, it's focusing on that democracy and authoritarianism issue. While that may be really important, we have seen time and time again, that is not the issue that you win elections on. I'm not saying that Democrats can't win the House right now. Certainly, this kind of energy is helpful. And there is I think, an apt comparison to 2010. I was there during the Tea Party movement on the Hill. I just think that Democrats have a problem where the sort of base of the party has defined it rather than the leaders. And I think there needs to be some shape around that. And democracy is important, but it is not what voters vote on.
Let's go around the horn on that. I'll get you, Senator Heitkamp, on it.
Well, honest to goodness, the Republicans are being defined by Donald Trump, who is engaged in behavior that most people in this country, even his supporters, think is pretty horrific. And he just proved it by how we responded to 7 million Americans saying, do better. And, you know, you can pick apart the Democratic Party, but this is going to be a referendum on Trump. Most midterms are. The last one was an anomaly because of the reversal of Roe v. Wade. I think that this is energy. And one thing I will tell you is there's people out there with clipboards. They are gathering up enough names and signatures to mobilize a lot of get out the vote, mobilize a lot of energy. When people are taking their nice fall day to do this, it means that it matters. And Donald Trump and the Republican Party can keep ignoring this. Nothing to see here. It's reminiscent of how the Democrats treated the Tea Party, and they should have paid more attention.
Molly, the only pushback that I would put on that, and not to be a Debbie Downer, is I wonder how many of those people in the crowd didn't vote in the last election or didn't vote for a Democrat in the last election.
Yeah.
And the last election was won by Donald Trump. So where is the unifying message that'll not just bring in the people who showed up on, and I don't know, but I'm asking the question, who showed up on Saturday, along with the people who think maybe the progressivism is a little too far to the left for them, but they are worried about costs of living and don't think the Republican Party has done a good job. Is there a chance for the Democratic Party to be bigger than just the progressive left?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure. And if you look at the two races in the 25 cycle, neither, I mean, not the mayor's race, but the governor's race in Virginia and the governor's race in New Jersey. Those are two national security moms who came up in 2018. No one is going to call them crazy lefties. You know, one worked at the CIA, one was a helicopter pilot. These women are, you know, mothers and workers and federal, you know, so I don't see, I mean, I obviously see that is something we talk a lot about in media world, and for sure. But I just want to add one other thing about Donald Trump here in this moment, which is he is so worried about the midterms that he is gone to different states to ask them to redistrict, right? He got 5 seats from Texas. If you don't see this as a president who is actually enacting monarchical, you know, he's acting like a monarch. And the fact that he wants redistricting and doesn't want a free and fair midterm strikes me as a pretty big a sign of just where we are in this country.